when I visited Hanan in August of last year, so he told me that he had always thought of himself as a bridge from traditional Judaism to whatever else existed out there. He wasn't sure that he had always succeeded. Sometimes he said the other side was so distant, and he wasn't sure that he was still connected back from where he had began. I've lost, we all lost, a dear friend, a landsman in the full sense of the word. One who came from the same fields, had spent so much time, like me, in his 20s, with the same Sfarim, and was now trying to reach out Jewishly in the same, sometimes wacky, but always endearing place. All of us know that the bridges in the Bay Area, they're very, very long. But we lost one of the longest. This memory should be for a blessing, but I want to add. There was an aspect that I did not touch on in this, which is very much part, obviously, I'm sure this has been commented upon over and over again, that Hanan passed away in the Parsha of Bris. Among the things that Avram was worried about, the Gemara in Nedarim says that when Avram Avinu heard the words that you'll walk in front of me and you'll be perfect, he was gripped by trembling. Is there something wrong? Have I not been perfect up till now? Is there something are we going to do something that's not so pretty? It bothered him. It bothered him. The same thing, the Satan had the same thing by the Akedah in this week's Parsha. You're going to do something like this? You're going to do something this cruel? The killing of your son, that's okay. But by Bris, it's the same problem. It's the same problem. Because it looks ugly. You're putting the mother through such pain. Father tries to be brave, but the mother knows. The mother knows. In the end, it's chavit. You're bringing blood. Avram Avinu is worried about this, and this is what he asks in terms of Eitzah from Mamre, from those who were around him. This is part of his yashrus. He goes even to the non-Jews because he wants to hear, not because he was thinking about not doing the bris, but if Mamre says, this is a totally barbaric thing to do, so he figures, I'll do it in private. I'll do it in private. We won't. You don't have to make such a big thing out of it. So Mamre says, what do you mean? What did he call it? He says it's going to be a bris. You're making a deal with the big one. You don't have to worry. You don't have to worry. Which is why the pasuk says, "Be'etzem hayom hazeh." Right? Rashi points out that "Be'etzem hayom hazeh" is only used a few times in the Torah. It always means that there were people who were like, "Stop! Don't you dare!" And you go ahead anyhow. You go ahead anyhow. Publicly, in the face of whatever folks say. The position of goalie. So it can be a hard sport at any position. Position of goalie is somebody who is willing to give up his body. A goalie is the toughest person on the field. Absolutely willing to give up. Hanan once walked into a reunion of the Indiana. Indiana comes out here usually once a year to play, and the alumni in the area come out. So Hanan didn't do this so often, but he went once to one of those meetings. He walked in, and everybody was like this, and he walked into the door back there. The person who was speaking was Jerry Yakey, right? A legend in the Midwest, right? The coach of Indiana for many, many years, and the coach of many national championship teams, which means a lot in that world. Everybody's rapt. They're looking at him. Hanan walks in the back. The only person who could see him was Jerry Yakey. And Jerry said, the toughest goalie that ever played for Indiana just walked in the room. The room turned around and looked at the door and couldn't find him. Nobody had any idea who he could be talking about. Here's this guy, he's got a beard to here, not at playing weight, as very few of us are. And they're like straining. Where's the guy? So Michael Freitag Michael Freitag was an All-American in teams that played closer to my time. So Michael Freitag, he figured it out. He figured it out because, you know, if you look at pictures, there's a faint resemblance between that guy, right, and that guy who was back then. And Freitag yelled out, "Carry!" And then people realized what was going on. The toughest goalie that ever played in the toughest position, in the best soccer team in the country. That toughness was what brought that man into the room. Not in shuls. In shuls it's not so hard, right? Shuls, like, you know, they know more or less what's going on. Brought him into rooms that were wild. Jewishly, absolutely wild. But it's my contention that the toughness, which is the toughness of Avram Avinu, that's my Yom Hazeh. That's the toughness of Bris. I always held that the toughness flowed from his humility, not from his willingness to give up his body. That wasn't it. It flowed from his humility. This is why I always thought that he was imperturbable in this situation. Why he was so cool when, like I said, shuls are nothing, right? I'm mostly in shuls. It's not always like that. In the house he walked into, it was sometimes absolutely crazy. The mother, the grandmother, and he would tell these stories afterwards, right? And he's saying, and I'm just trying to do the bread. I'm just trying to get through. Incredibly tough. But I'm telling you, the toughness came because he knew he was a servant. He was a servant of something much, much bigger than what was going on in that room. And because of that, he could stride forward as though it was nothing, absolutely nothing. And this is not just because he had done it many times, because he was totally aware of the tension in the room. It's not like he was oblivious. He was as sensitive as anybody else. He was more sensitive than most of us, that's for sure. But he was a servant of what he was there to do. And that humility let the toughness flow. He was never apologetic. He was never embarrassed about Yiddishkeit, about what he was there to do. That's what it was for Avram Avinu at the very beginning, and that's what we saw here Bezras Hashem, right? The old word of the Vilna Gaon is that the midos of the nifter are hefker. They've got no owner anymore, which means they're there. Pick them up. They're there for anybody to pick up. Hefker on the ground. Anybody who can grab can take full ownership. This was about midos, but the midah that was al kulana was his enough humility. Avram Avinu, and we got to see it here. His memory should be a blessing. Amen.
Okay.